Welcome to the Contemporary Issue Sunday School class. Thank you for coming out on a snowy March day. We're a little light on the attendance today because of the snow, I would think.
Choir has a practice.
And the choir has a practice. Doggone that choir. But today we are glad to have Mr. Ron Puning talking to us about Harry Truman and how Harry was a model of good decisions and good character, and really exemplified many values that we show, even though maybe you'll tell us whether he was a religious person and talked about that. Good, that'd be interesting. Okay, and our usual announcements. First, hello, Doug on Zoom. Nice to see you. Hi. Welcome to our Zoomers. Please mute yourself in the lower corner of your screen if you can. Keep the background noise down. And we are recording this for future playback. And any other announcements of things coming up? Easter coming up. What's going on? Yes.
Beware the Ides of March.
The Ides of March. And beware of the weather whiplash. Don't get your neck whiplash from this 80 degrees to 30 degrees, 80 degrees, back and forth. Don't put away any of your clothes. Don't buy flowers and put them out quite yet. Until May.
After Mother's Day.
After Mother's Day, that's right. Okay. Well, before we start, we're gonna do Harry Truman, and I made a spelling mistake when I.
Oh, I thought it was fun. I thought it was fun.
The Buick stops here. It was not exactly Harry Truman's comment. It was more like about responsibility, not which car stops in front of your house. So maybe he drove a Buick, that could be. Okay, enough silliness. Thank you, Ron, for presenting this good topic.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We're going to start with a song that was written by the rock group Chicago in 1975. And if you look at the first page of this handout, of this picture, are the words to the song. So if you'd like to sing along or just follow along, let's listen to how Chicago did this song, because it's as relevant today as it was when they cut it and issued it in 1975. So here we go. The song is literally called Harry Truman.
America needs you, Harry Truman.
Chicago.
America needs you, Harry Truman. Harry, please come home. There's a looking back. I know you will be back to see Harry now. Valentine, glad you laugh. America is one thing. How we got you have out and alive. Yes, cheers to miles from Memphis to get so bad. Can you speak your mind in a simple way? All space, just like back in the day. You would play piano on the open mind. The boy was going down inside. Harry Truman, Harry, you know what to do. The world is turning around, it's lots of ground. For Harry is something to save that.
Alrighty, that's a good one.
You talk about Chris and Eric's.
That is
Gerald
funny.
Ford was president.
So I don't know if that was relative to Richard Nixon, but it certainly fits.
We love Vietnam.
Yeah, I love the lines that are applicable to today. And yeah, slide the thing over so we can get to the slides. A lot of good books on Truman. I mentioned the McCullough one. Another one that talks about uh, the critical years when Truman slid into the job, uh, replacing Roosevelt in Roosevelt's last days. Of course, there he had some pretty straightforward comments. This book has got some good laughs in it. The Wit and Wisdom of Harry Truman. On the last page of one of the handouts, that has Truman in pencil on the top of it. If you go to the bottom of the second page, there's a cartoon, and he says there's the Lauren Bacall on the piano there,
Oh.
and he said, "This is a quote of Harry Truman. My choice early in life was either to be a piano player in a whorehouse or a politician. And to tell the truth, there's hardly any difference. I, for one, believe the piano player job to be much more honorable than current politicians." So I thought that was one of his better ones. Okay, but you know, the more I read Harry Truman, the more impressed I am. He put out two comprehensive memoir books. This one's out of print, but I did get a copy of it. Years of Trial and Hope. And you can learn a lot about a person by reading what they have written, not their hired author or biographer, but what they have written. And excellent. You can see what a good mind he had, his critical thinking, his accuracy, his poignant thought, and then the follow-on for another period of years that he also wrote his memoirs. This one is still in print and it's quite excellent. It's got some real insights into him as a person. So I recommend.
The other one isn't in print, no?
This one is not in print.
Okay.
Years of Trial and Hope, although sometimes you can find one on
E-books.
yeah, go on the internet and look for an eBay or something. Okay, let's get into it. Here's a poll that was taken quite recently, ranking all the presidents. And
Guess what Trump is.
interesting. Abe Lincoln usually comes in first. There's also numerical scores. And Abe Lincoln, number one, Franklin Roosevelt, George Washington coming in third, Teddy Roosevelt comes in fourth, Jefferson fifth, and whammo, there's Harry up there at number 6. So you can agree or disagree with the rankings.
Bottom right behind you.
Yeah, so interesting, very interesting.
Steve Buchanan, he was one of the.
And then there's number 45 down at the bottom. You might not like that rank.
Buchanan.
He's worse than Buchanan.
Okay, so you can argue with those, but historians in general have come to realize what a good guy Truman was. Although when he left office
Yeah.
in 52-ish, he only had like a 22% approval rating. But as time went on, people started to see
What did he run? I didn't catch that. I was looking for.
Number six.
where was Truman, number 6. Yeah. And of course, this is subjective. Not everybody will put him at that position. But why does he rank high? Truman made decisions with clarity and moral courage. He established the Truman Doctrine for Europe, launched the Marshall Plan, and they couldn't name it after Truman because it would have not gotten the bipartisan support. It got when they used George Marshall's name on it. He desegregated.
That was rebuilding Europe after the destruction of World War II.
Right.
Also, desegregating the military in 1948 was an incredibly bold and decisive decision. And he proved that leadership is mostly about character, forged in ordinary struggles, seeking wise counsel. He was known for drawing good people in to advise him. For example, Eisenhower, his successor, he had Eisenhower very much involved in helping set up NATO and the Marshall Plan. I've had the good fortune with Alice to tour both the Eisenhower Museum there in Kansas and also the Truman Museum just across the Kansas border in Independence. And the two presidential libraries complement each other very well because they both dealt with World War II, its climax, and the incredible number of decisions that had to be made going into the Cold War and the atomic era. So those are two good museums to go to, and they're quite complementary. You would, in today's world where things are so polarized, it was a nice trip to see two good Americans museums that close together. He had the courage to make impossible choices, knowing history would judge every word, yet never letting that weight paralyze the action. A couple of his sayings. Here's a saying on the top that he made very early in his career. In reading the lives of great men, I found that the first victory they won was over themselves. Self-discipline with all of them came first. So he was a big believer in getting to know yourself and getting control of yourself and exercising discipline. He was known in his life for taking about a 3-mile walk every morning to keep himself, get himself refreshed and invigorated. And he had some other good practices. And of course, I like the poster that we put up over here. One of his sayings, I never did give anybody hell. I just told the truth and they thought it was hell. So that's a good one. All right, let's jump into the next one. Number 3, come down one slide. You're up to,
Sorry.
nope, we're too far down. Oh, I'm sorry, come down one, yeah. We want to quickly touch on, and we don't want to spend time on this, but maybe Coach Steve or any of you other Kansas Cityans like Vicky into giving a talk. But he, of course, grew up in Jackson County, Missouri, which parallels it's right on the border next to the metro Kansas City area. And that county maybe has as turbulent a history as any in the whole country. Savage brutality and leading up to the Civil War, the 1838 Missouri Mormon War, where they put out Missouri Executive Order 44, which mandated the extermination or expulsion of Mormons.
Wow.
The
Whoa.
war resulted in 22 deaths and displacement of 10,000 Latter-day Saints that were booted out of the Jackson County area.
Is that where they started the trek across the country and then ended up in Utah?
That
No,
started
that's
it.
me.
It was, well, no, they got kicked into Illinois and then
Nauvoo, Illinois.
from Illinois.
What period was that?
New York.
Well, that Mormon war, there was 1838.
This was before Nauvoo.
Yeah. So this is, I'm just trying to set the tone for the kind of area Independence, Missouri grew from and the turbulence of the greater Kansas City area. Next one. Again, Jackson County, Missouri became a Civil War prequel. 1865, when the Civil War ended, there were bushwhackers and there was a civil war, literally, and a guerrilla war going on in Jackson County. They had to forcibly expel almost the entire population of Jackson County. And the number of outright murders and savage family-to-family fights in Jackson County was pretty incredible. Let's get back to the main subject.
Is that Quantrill up there?
That is Bloody Bill Anderson,
Okay.
but Quantrill was one of the same kind of.
Same
There were a whole
kind of-
bunch of
Yeah.
nasties that came out of Jackson County. Jumping to Harry, born in Lamar, Missouri, 1884, oldest child, and his middle initial S is comes from honors two grandfathers. We want to point out right away that Harry suffered from severe myopia, not just a little bit of myopia, severe myopia, nearsightedness. And he had to have very, very thick, heavy glasses made for him at a young age. In fact, it was said that these glasses cost at that time $100. So his mom and dad, who had to really scrounge to come up with $100 for a kid's glasses, pretty much told him, don't you dare break those glasses. And that prohibited him from getting engaged in a lot of school play activities with the kids and the buddies. So that kind of, it's a deterrent to one's personality and personal growth. So he had to cope with that. On the other side of the coin, he maybe took advantage of having to introspect more, not being able to do the physical stuff. He was an avid reader. I mean, he read hundreds of books. And that tells you something about he must have developed, and he did, a good intellect and certainly a good understanding of history and things. When he was 6 years old, his parents moved to Independence, Missouri, so he could attend the Presbyterian Sunday school. And that tells you something about his parents. They said that they thought it was worthwhile to make sure involved in some religious training. That was one of
Is
the
that when
key.
they left the farm?
I think they still have their farm. I'd have to look in more detail. But they definitely did have a farm
Yeah.
in Jackson County there. So he was very interested in music, reading, history, and math. My gosh, where was he when I was growing? I think we'd be best buddies. He certainly fit a lot of my personal interests. He was encouraged by his mom, with whom he was very close, even after becoming president. So he had a good relationship, particularly with his mom and his dad. He learned to play piano at age 7.
Because she moved in.
And he got up every morning at 5 o'clock to practice the piano. There's that self-discipline that he talked about, practicing his piano and reading books. And so he wasn't one to idle and not concentrate. His first taste of politics, he worked as a page at the 1900 Democratic Convention in Kansas City. And his father had many Democratic friends who helped Harry gain his first political position. Graduated from Independence High School in 1901, and he took bookkeeping classes at a Kansas City Business School, but stopped after a year. So he had a year of business school training. And of course, I have to say, if he'd read hundreds of books like he did, he had a self-education that was probably better than a lot of people who did get formal degrees. He was employed for a time as a bank clerk in Kansas City, and they found a performance appraisal from one of his supervisors, and the appraiser wrote, his appearance is good and his habits and character are of the best. So he was obviously well thought of. Not McCullough, but the other author that I'm always Meacham. Meacham, of course, wrote the books Lincoln, and he also wrote Jefferson and some others. I think he's got one on Andrew Jackson. But they interviewed John Meacham on Firing Line just a week or two ago. And Meacham in particular is talking about character. And he said he felt, particularly for presidential duties, he said character was everything. He said, show me a person with character, and we're probably going to do well. If your character is defective, we're in for a heap of hurt. So, okay. So he was employed briefly at the mailroom of the Kansas City Star. That's you, right?
Where I worked for a while.
What's that rock song? That little ditty, Kansas City Star, that's what I are.
What I are.
Little country tune. But So he worked in the mailroom there for a little while, and he had obtained a job as a timekeeper for construction crews, watching or working on the Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe. And he had to go out on the rail lines where they were building and repairing and working, and spend a lot of nights in workmen's camps along the rail lines. So he got to see a lot of, quote, ordinary, common folk in that experience. And of course, he did use the business school, the timekeeping, time cards, overtime, scheduling people to work and all that stuff. He had a brother named Vivian, and they worked as clerks later at the National Bank of Commerce in Kansas City. So he was no dummy. All right. He did have a connection in Kansas City. The boss there, the political boss of Kansas City, roughly in the time era, the mid-20s to about 1940, the Prendergast family was kind of the boss of Kansas City, the machine. And they very much controlled giving jobs as patronage positions and control. They also had, I think, heavy ownership of ready-mix concrete.
Yeah.
Right. So at any rate, Harry met the nephew of the big boy, Prendergast, and Tom Prendergast gave him some. I misspelled. It's Pendergast, not Prendergast, or is it? I need to make sure I get it. It's Pendergast. No, okay. And he made some connections. We'll see later when Harry gets one of the first jobs as a kind of a county commissioner. They called it a judge, but he got a job as a county commissioner, and he was scrupulously honest. And he ticked off the Prendergast because he wouldn't do what they told him to do. He kept his promise to voters and refused to use favoritism on contracts. In April 1918, he was promoted to captain and ended up as the captain of a field artillery group that went over with 1 million other American soldiers to Europe to fight in World War I. Next slide. All right. So there's his World War I experience. He did get sent right into some combat areas with his artillery unit. He was chosen by the men as the leader. His men were all drawn from like a National Guard unit, greater Kansas City area. His men said that one of the things he learned from that experience was to learn to work with people of different religious and political backgrounds. He made a lot of friends, particularly one fellow who was Jewish, another Catholic, and a lot of ethnic soldiers. And he learned to get along with people of different perspectives and persuasions. And this would carry him through the rest of his life. Let's go back one. I wanted to mention the horrors of gas warfare. Some of the artillery shells they had mustard gas, phosgenes, and other horrible chemicals in them. And there were a lot of men who were crippled for life or killed by those deadly use of gases. So it certainly gave him a good perspective on the horrors of war. Someone who has not fought battle and not seen death and destruction can sometimes take war too lightly. There's a real advantage to having somebody that understands the horrors of war and doesn't reach for the war card too quickly. But again, he did develop the friendships with a wide spectrum of ethnic backgrounds and religious backgrounds. Next slide. Okay, so he comes back from the war after spending just a little over a year over there, and his true love was Bess. He actually approached Bess in 1911 and wanted to marry her, but he wasn't good enough for her. Her family looked down upon him. He was just a common. He wasn't bad. He was just a common guy. And he also didn't have the financial wherewithal to launch a home and a family. And that was common then, and it's to some degree common now. But after he did return from the war, 1990, he took the plunge. He opened a haberdashery, a hat, clothing, men's store in Kansas City with his buddy, whom he met through the Army experience. And I believe this buddy was a Jewish fellow. And he did promise Bess that he thought he had enough financial wherewithal for them to get married.
He failed.
And so he took the plunge. And there's Harry with Bess at the wedding in 1919. Next. All right. There's a couple shots of his haberdashery business. You can see, what's it say? Shirts, collars, gloves, belts, men's fashion. The store was pretty nice. It wasn't it wasn't a massive department store like a Macy's, but it was a nice little store in downtown Kansas City. And it did okay for maybe a year or two. And then there was a horrible drop in grain prices, particularly wheat. And it was like a mini recession that certainly hit the wheat belt and hit that area of Kansas. And sales went plummeted, and the business got in trouble, and they had to get out of that business.
No
He
more
left.
raccoon cats, right?
No more what?
Raccoon hats.
No raccoon. All right. That's back. Yeah. Okay. So he started off as a low judge position that he won election to, and he leveraged that. And then 1934, of course, the Depression really got cranked up in about 1929. The Depression hit even harder by 1932. By 1934, there was an election for an open Senate seat in the state of Missouri. And of course, this is the depths of the Depression. If you you had a detectable heartbeat and a Democratic message, you could probably win in 1934 in those states, and that was true. The Prendergast recognized Truman. It's a strong bet to win the Senate seat, and with their endorsement, he won by a large margin. So he went all the way from just a minor county commissioner, shall we say, in Jackson County to
U.S. Senate.
U.S. Senate, 1934. He defeated the incumbent Republican by nearly 20 points. Again, it was a pro-New Deal wave that swept him into office. There's a picture of him with his wife, Bess, and his daughter, their daughter, Margaret. Next slide.
Oh, cute.
How are we doing here? We got to get to, okay. So his first term in the Senate, he spoke against corporate greed and special interest. He served on the Appropriations and Interstate Commerce Committee. He was largely ignored by Roosevelt and had trouble getting calls returned. During the U.S. Senate election in 1940, so now it's 6 years later, senators served 6 years terms. He went up against U.S. Attorney Maurice Milligan and former Governor Lloyd Stark. Has anybody ever heard of the Stark fruit trees? There's a business out of Missouri run by the Stark family, multi-generations, and they mail order and sell predominantly fruit trees and bushes throughout the country. I know when Alice and I lived in Tennessee, we bought a couple of those Stark fruit trees and put them on our hillside front yard in Tennessee. At any rate, meanwhile in Kansas City, Prendergast went down in popularity, and being connected to him became as much of a detriment as it did a plus. And Truman kind of just edged through and kind of won. He was hard pressed to win even the Democratic primary. there in 1940. But he did, and he won the Democratic primary by only 8,000 votes. For a statewide election, it's not much. And then in the election itself, he won, but it was only by 51-49. So it was pretty close. It's pretty close. Next slide. All right. Maybe his most famous piece of history in the second term of the Senate was the Truman Committee. World War II was getting cranked up. There were massive government contracts going out for every kind of military and defense need you could think of. And it was ripe for corrupt people to take advantage of some of those contracts. So he formed a committee and went around looking for honesty, integrity, and fair value in particularly defense contracts. And he got national attention. I think he made the cover of Time magazine, the Truman Committee. Okay. And he was described as honest, efficient, and with extraordinary skill. And he generated a lot of media publicity that gave him a national reputation. The committee reportedly saved as much as 15 billion. That's equivalent of, they said, 260 billion today. And there's a televised meeting of the Truman Committee meeting in 1943 on national media. All right, so here we are. We're plunging into World War II. And of course, 1944, FDR is coming up for his, let's see, 32, 36, 40, for a fourth term. So for 44, the vice president was a man by the name of Henry Wallace. And I've got that book, by the way, American Dreamer. Wallace was from Iowa and had a tremendous amount of progressive ideas. But he was too progressive and for a lot of the Democratic establishment. They felt he was maybe swinging too hard into the socialist, very socialist category. And they got nervous about it. They thought they better get him off the ballot or they would maybe even lose the 44 election. And so they went searching for someone to put in his place. And that someone turns out to be Harry Truman. Truman didn't have a lot of people that were rapidly excited about him, but he was accepted and liked by everyone. He wasn't carrying skeletons in his closet and bad baggage. So he got the nod and got the vice presidential position. Next slide. All right. So there's a picture of Truman sitting next to FDR for his fourth term. And also another gentleman who would later become Harry's vice president. There, standing next to Harry in the middle is Wallace, who got dumped. And then Barkley, who's from, I believe, Kentucky or Tennessee, I'm sure. Senator Barkley of Kentucky or Tennessee got the VP nod for when Truman would go later. Okay, next slide. So the Roosevelt-Truman ticket won the Electoral College 432-99 and defeated the Dewey-Bricker combo. He would later run against Dewey again in 48. But Truman was sworn in as VP in January of 45. After the inauguration, Truman called his mother, who instructed him, "Now you behave yourself." And there's a picture of Harry. Yeah, and I think what we'll get a lot of material to do. I think we want to get into some discussion. Let's do about one or two more slides and we want to touch on. some of the issues. Of course, one of the big surprises of the political century was how bad FDR was, his health, and what really was. They said anybody that was around him knew he was in really bad shape. It wasn't just something minor, like a bum knee or something. He was cerebral, or his heart's congestive heart failure was serious. I mean, really serious. And he's still smoking. And
That it wasn't known to the public
yeah,
during the election.
exactly.
Yeah.
But
This heart surgeon coming
the
up.
smart people knew that his days were really numbered. They thought the odds of his making it through a fourth term were just about nothing. And sure enough, only 82 days into Roosevelt's fourth term, he had been over at the Senate because he's vice president. The vice president kind of guides a lot of the Senate issues. And he was, the session had finished for the day. He was having a drink in Speaker Sam Rayburn's office when he received an urgent message to go immediately to the White House. And the first person, they didn't tell him why, but they said, get over here immediately. And Eleanor Roosevelt was one of the first persons to meet him and told him that FDR died of a cerebral hemorrhage. And Truman asked Eleanor if there was anything he could do for her. She replied, is there anything we can do for you? You're the one in trouble now. So there he is getting sworn in. That, of course, is Bess, his wife, next to him on the right, and his daughter to the far right.
So Ron, when did they switch it from 4 terms or 3 terms to 2?
Yeah.
I think that was it 52? About 52, they decided, no more.
Amendment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. But I love that reply of Eleanor.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do for you? For you're the one in trouble now. He was sworn in a little after 7 o'clock that evening. Okay, next slide. Okay. Truman was a really hard worker, often to the point of exhaustion. So he was not one to be out on the golf course or taking naps. Although he worked so hard, sometimes he got a little grumpy and cranky and easily annoyed. On major issues, he discussed them in depth with top advisors, said he mastered the details of the federal budget as well as anyone. And as he readied for the 48 election, Truman made clear his identity as a Democrat in the New Deal tradition. And he advocated for national health insurance. And he, as an aside, he enjoyed playing poker, telling stories, and sipping bourbon. Okay, there's a picture of Truman at the 1945 Potsdam critical convention. It essentially divided up Europe and played a key role in bringing World War II to a close. All right. Yeah, in fact, if Truman went to Potsdam to meet with Stalin and Churchill and some other leaders, this book gives detail on how the Nazis found out about that meeting and tried to send a large assassination team to Potsdam to try to nail them all. And the Russian intelligence played the most key role in finding out about it and putting counteragents in place to squash that major assassination attempt that would have maybe taken out Truman, Churchill, and Stalin. So interesting book. All right, we've talked a good bit. Let's go back on one of your handouts. There's Truman questions to discuss at the back of this page. Go ahead.
Can I add something to the wonderful biography of Truman?
Sure.
He had one major weakness. That was Margaret, his daughter. She had trained to be an opera singer.
That's right.
I heard her sing in Pittsburgh at the college.
Really?
And there was a critique given to her performance. and he was furious. So you learned never to criticize Margaret,
Right.
his operatic daughter. Kind of relates to his interest in.
Yeah, well, it was the press that actually gave him.
No fly zone.
Right, right.
What did you think, Gene, what did you think of the way she sang?
Well, this has been a while back. Not being a critic in quotes, I thought it was a jolly good performance. But who am I to know? But anyway, that was just a given. You don't criticize Margaret.
All right,
You get the hell of Henry.
let's go back. First of all, are there any general questions so far before we look at a few of the questions? Anything that caught your eye? Okay. John Meacham talked about character. What do you consider the key constituent elements and attributes that make really good character that you would like to see in any current or future president?
Honesty.
Honesty.
Honesty. Yeah.
Courage.
Honesty,
The honesty issue, being honest.
Courage.
Courageous enough to tell the truth.
okay,
Straight talk.
straight talk,
Flip flop.
empathy. Oh, brother, isn't that the, yeah. Show me a person without empathy that's in a leadership position and God helps.
Loyalty.
Loyalty.
No. No.
I think also an openness and I think even a sense of humor.
Yeah.
I've noticed in some of the leaders in America today,
Yes.
that they'll never tell a joke or
Yes.
break down. Yeah, at least some of the, I think, the low character ones never
Well,
tell,
And they'll never apologize either.
never apologize.
They'll never apologize.
Humility, being able to appoint people who will do a better job than he can and tell him the truth.
Okay, which brings us back to Doris Kernan's Goodwin's book. And the name of the book is
Team of Rivals.
Team of Rivals. And that book's kind of mandatory reading because Lincoln particularly picked people who had aggressively opposed him, put him in the cabinet because he valued their opinion, their deep thinking, and they would tell it. They wouldn't just bow down before him and tell him you're so great. They would tell it like it is to him. And he felt he was the better president for getting that counsel.
Say hardworking and personal accountability.
Okay,
Another thing that I think we miss today is our leaders' lack of understanding of the Constitution and also our past history.
Mm.
And I just think that plays into decision making.
I think that may have been one of the secrets, Harry Truman, that he not only read, but he read history. He had a tremendous knowledge of Greek, Roman, and American and international history from his youth. And I think that gave him depth of insight.
That gave that
Incredibly
a
valuable.
sense of humility too. That he was humble. He knew he had more to learn. Didn't know it all.
Yeah.
I mean, the humility
Mhm.
is strength within humility.
Right,
That's it.
I'd like to just copy the Buick stops here, the buck stops here, the responsibility, took responsibility for his decisions, not trying to blame.
yeah, he didn't say my predecessor, it's all their fault. Yeah, yeah. Okay, another question. A good biography to read is the biography of George Marshall. George Marshall ran essentially the war effort through the entirety of World War II. And Marshall was extremely well respected across the board. And any military guy will tell you that maybe the biggest part of winning a war is the logistics, the planning, and the overall management is so critically important. And Marshall was a key factor in our winning the war. And so when it came time to send aid to the desperate European countries that were on the brink of starvation. They put the plan together under the name of the Marshall Plan, George Marshall.
Sorry to state,
Yes,
he was in some.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting on that,
After the war.
my dad,
Karen, there's a microphone right there. If you grab that microphone, that would help. Thank you.
so, my dad served in the military, and was after the war, and was in Berlin. And I asked my dad, I said, he was there 7 years after the war ended. And what I wanted to know from him was, what did it look like? And, in Berlin, he said, still, it was as if a front end loader had just gone through the streets and all this rubble was just piled up on either side of the street. And he said, he goes, had it not been for the Marshall Plan, he's not sure how Europe would have ever gotten back on their feet. So, and that was, his comments just always stick with me, and I'm like, the Marshall? What's the Marshall Plan? And that's where I dug in and found out
Okay,
it was an incredible boost to Europe.
okay.
You guys didn't learn that in US history?
I'm sure I did, but did I remember 40 years later? The Marshall Plan?
Absolutely.
You know, I'd heard of it, but I didn't know its significance. Or that George Marshall had been Secretary of State and
Oh,
all that stuff.
wow. If you were drilled on that.
Yeah. If you've read any of Anne Applebaum's books, she does a lot of political commentary today. But I've read a couple of her books, the one on the Iron Curtain. She's won a couple of. But the Soviet domination of Eastern Europe and the horror, they brought down the Iron Curtain. And it was absolutely crucial for the United States to step in, or the Soviet domination of Europe would have been extensive, more than it already
Fulton,
was.
Missouri was where Winston Churchill said an iron curtain has fallen across Eastern Europe. Fulton, Missouri, Winston Churchill said that.
Okay.
Good speech there.
There's a wonderful museum there.
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
And of course, the formation of NATO. Truman was a strong believer in establishing not only the Marshall Plan, but forming the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And of course, Eisenhower was a key advisor. Interestingly enough, and we'll get to it next week as we continue this, Truman called in Herbert Hoover to give him some advice, because Hoover was well respected for his understanding of financial matters and getting aid to.
He helped rescue the Belgians after World War
Yeah.
One.
So
Starvation.
Truman pulled in Herbert Hoover, who bipartisanly stepped in and helped a great deal in implementing the Marshall Plan and associated things. And of course, NATO. And as I was mentioning earlier, if you get to the Eisenhower Museum or the Truman Museum, both of them put a lot of stress on what they did in terms of helping Europe survive, their active establishment of NATO, their use of the Marshall Plan. So both Truman and Eisenhower were critical presidents in helping Europe not fall under communist domination more than it already did.
It's interesting, as part of the Marshall Plan, Czechoslovakia was initially interested in taking funds from the Marshall Plan. But then Russia stepped in and convinced Czechoslovakia, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to join that program, because they were proposing to give money to anybody in Europe. But that's when Russia stepped in and said, no, if you're one of our satellites, you don't take money from the Marshall Plan. Yeah.
Does anybody know what the plan is for Gaza? Redeveloping Gaza now that it's just a rubble
Is there a
field?
plan?
There is, Trump has a plan and he's called for, the broker, the plan for peace or something for Gaza. And I know he's tried to raise money privately but I haven't, and
I
he's
haven't.
asking for,
$1 billion of.
but there's been no real organized multi-country effort to try and rebuild Gaza that I know of, so. Just made me think of the Marshall Plan. Anybody heard any updates on that? I haven't.
I'll say this, if there's a tremendous beach and motel there 20 years from now.
You know,
You
could be,
won't find me online to go there.
but it needs something like a Marshall Plan to really get going.
Right.
Yeah.
Who would you have to lead it?
I'm not.
The Israelis want it.
Don't think the Israelis wanna
No.
do it either.
Not to rebuild.
Yeah,
Trump.
complicated and tough.
Yeah.
Hey, one other thing, if I could mention too, related, Truman running for the US Senate at the beginning. A lot of you all probably know. Okay, yeah. A lot of you all probably know, that the biggest Methodist church in America is in Kansas City. And, the pastor there, Adam Hamilton, it just, is looking and announced that he is looking at running for the US Senate. And he's been encouraged by other senators and leaders that he's such a good business person with his 200+ employees and his political involvement as an independent, moderate person that he should run. So he said, I'm exploring now, and he just went across Kansas this last week and met with people in Hutchinson and Wichita and he's in Dodge City. And he's considering, running for that. But a lot of people are telling him, don't run as an independent, which he wants to do, because that will help the Republican get elected. Because it will draw so many people that are would vote for a Democrat, might then vote for an independent also, and that would pull votes away from the Republican who is a Trump supporter. So just interesting, if some of you hadn't heard that pastor of a big church, the biggest Methodist church in America, is considering running for the US Senate with no political experience. But there have been many other, there are 3 other pastors in the Senate, I think, or Congress now, that have done this and been successful. And so Adam is looking at doing this. And he's got people on both sides. Vicky and I know he and his wife, and people on both sides saying, yes, run and do it. You'd be a good person of character. And others saying, don't get in that dirty business. You know, it'd be terrible for you and your family.
Play the piano.
I have to say, I kind of hope he runs as maybe a Democrat. And if he does, I know who I want as his press agent, one of his key advisors. I think Steve could be a great advisor, don't you guys think so? Yeah.
We wouldn't want to move to Washington, but thank you for the
Play
compliment.
with the pastor. Play happens to the pastor.
Does anybody have the Truman? Yeah,
Yes. Questions?
and the second page of
Yes.
the picture, I pointed.
Yeah,
You pointed it out.
Yeah. Steve, that would be better than a piano player in the.
Yeah.
I like that comment about John Kennedy visited Truman years later.
Okay.
I want to give our Zoomers a chance to comment or question. Anybody on Zoom want to comment about Harry Truman or anything? Okay.
Steve, is this gonna be continued next week?
Yes.
Yeah, we've got a lot of, this is an advertisement for next week.
The atomic bomb.
We got to deal with the atomic bomb, the MacArthur firing, the Korean War, Truman's political downfall. I mean, wasn't where his ratings went in the tube.
Why did they, just briefly, Ron? Why?
I think it was a triple thing. Number one, Democrats have held the office for 20 years. And there was just that I'm tired of the same old. We've seen that in American politics. You run on the slogan, it's time for a change.
Sure.
I think the nation had grown tired of it. 2, the Korean War turned out to be not a short 2-week military action. It went on and on and on, taking 35,000 American
Still?
lives.
A stalemate.
And it's, yeah, they were absolutely sick and tired of the Korean War. And Truman also, and maybe rubbed the cat's fur a wrong way in putting at least some of the World War II restrictions in place in terms of coupons for buying. And I think people just wanted the fresh,
Yeah.
new change, that Eisenhower, he was a promising
Oh, yeah.
new hero to step in and move things along.
They tried to attract him to the Democratic Party.
Yeah, yeah, right. Okay,
Very good.
okay, so stay tuned for part two. And,
Ron.
should we have the drawing? Did anybody put their name in the, cup?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you did. You did your name, right?
Anybody win the book?
I have to shake the things,
Oh, okay.
have you draw one of
Where's the cup?
All righty. Thanks, everybody.
Karen wants her name.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna let you go. Thanks, everybody, for being with us. See you next week. Bye-bye, Susan.
Just gonna put her name.
Joe and
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.